What's up, everyone? Christian Duke, StrengthAddicts.com, backstage of the 2018 NPC Mountaineer Classic. I'm here with Rich Siegelman. Rich, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Christian. Thanks.
Fantastic. Also, I really want to thank you for doing those 2 Instagram lives with Kevin Lavroni and myself. That was awesome. How did that show go, by the way?
I tell you what, the NPC Baltimore Gladiator was a huge success. We had over 2,000 people come through the door. Actually ran out of tickets, and we had almost 200 competitors. And with crossovers, we had over 453 athletes. Phenomenal event. It was just a great way to kick off the year.
Fantastic. You know, and you go back to the 90s. I mean, you know, there's Sean Ray and Flex Wheeler, but there's something about Kevin, something about the Maryland Muscle Machine. His fan base, I mean, he's got over 600,000 followers on Instagram. I think the guy's following like 200 people or something. It's just insane.
Yeah, Kevin, literally, and Kevin's a great friend, and I can call him a great friend. I've known Kevin for years. I actually judged Kevin at the Maryland State when he won the Maryland State way back in the day in the early 90s before he even went to the Nationals to turn pro.
So Rich, talk to us about how you were able to make the transition from being a competitor to a promoter, because to me that seems like, you know, I don't even know the first thing about being a competitor, much less going from being a successful competitor as you were to then being a promoter.
Yeah, well, you know, Christian, literally I started competing in 1984. It was the first show I did, so I'm a dinosaur in the industry. And I competed all through the 80s. First show I did was the Team DC. I actually did in 1987, I did the Junior Nationals when it was in Columbus, Ohio. And the gentleman that won that in 1987 is happily also a good dear friend of mine and IFBB Pro, and he is actually the man that is the MC for the Olympia. So he is the voice of bodybuilding, Bob Ciccarello. So now you're going way back. But the transition, you know, it really wasn't that bad, because in '89 I actually stopped competing for a while because I was a police officer also in the state of Maryland. So it just got to be too much with working in a federal narcotics task force. So basically through the rest of the 80s and the 90s all the way till 2004, till I retired from the police department. Then after I retired, I made the transition back to competitive bodybuilding. And I started off with a phenomenal show that unfortunately is no longer around. Steve McAdams used to put together a great show called The Body Rock in Virginia. And I started my career out again winning the Maryland State and the Body Rock in 2004. And just continued from there until I got my pro card at the Nationals in 2010. And then it was just time to call it a career. But in between all that, I always wanted to be a promoter. And what I always did is, while I was backstage and everybody was there pumping up and getting ready, I was the guy sitting back there just kind of watching everything and watching everybody. And I said, you know, one day I would love to promote a show. So I got the opportunity back in 2006 when Mr. Mannion and Gary Udick gave me the opportunity to do the Maryland State. And I started off with that, and that was the first show I ever did. And we only had 53 competitors. I had 350 people show up, and I had 1 sponsor and vendor. And basically grew that from there to make it what it is now with the 3 shows that I have in Maryland. And for a while I was actually traveling all over. I had some other shows in other states. But now it's just the 3 shows here in Maryland that are just, all 3 of them are phenomenal events. We have the NPC Baltimore Gladiator Championships in March, at the Maryland State East Coast Classic in June. And then we end off the year in October for my Pro-Am, where I do a strictly Masters Pro, and with that I also do an Open and Amateur with it, which is also a national qualifier. Fantastic.
And where can folks go on social media, websites, to stay up to date with you and with your contests?
They can stay up to date basically on my website is www.richsiegelman.com. And all the information, remember, June 9th is the Maryland State East Coast Classic Championships. And then again, October 27th is the IFBB Masters Baltimore Pro, where I'm actually also bringing in women's bodybuilding now.
Fantastic.
To the Masters. And of course, the NPC Baltimore Classic with it. So again, it's going to be, we're going to keep on going and keep riding the train throughout the year. And it's just going to be a phenomenal year.
And thank you so much for keeping women's bodybuilding alive, at least trying to. I think it's a great division. I think, you know, it needs to be marketed a certain way, but I definitely think it has a place, as well as fitness. And so, you know, kudos to you on doing that. Well,
thank you very much, Christian. I appreciate it. But again, women's bodybuilding, that was back in the day when that's all there was men's and women's bodybuilding back in the 80s. So I'm a product from back then. It was great times back then, and always love to see women's bodybuilding back in the mix.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. For promoter Rich Siegelman, Christian Duke, StrengthAddicts.com.